I'm Leo Walder for Kit Guru. The box of tricks at the centre of today's review is the Corsair Commander Pro, which is a little black box that you use to control lighting and fans within your PC build. Thus, I regularly use NZXT's Hue Plus lighting controller and Grid Plus V2 fan controller. They're two separate devices. One does lighting, one does fans, and they are hooked together in NZXT's CAM monitoring software that can also control the lights and the fans in your system. Corsair has similar sorts of setups with the HD 140 RGB and 120 RGB fans. Each fan has two wires coming from it, one that controls the fan itself, one controls the lighting within the fan. You can also buy a whole bunch of these lighting node lighting strips, and again you get a little black box controller. It's these sorts of controllers here. And then you also hook them into your USB in your PC and use the Corsair Link software to sort of unite them together. It can get somewhat messy. You end up with an awful lot of cabling in your system. You also end up with a number of little control boxes, and you need a number of USB connections. Commander Pro replaces all your connections. You only require one USB 2 connection on your motherboard, and the software, the Link software, controls all the various bits of Corsair hardware. It does end up slightly expensive. The hardware I've installed in this PC for lighting and fans and the control unit comes to about £200, which seems to me, well, frankly, a lot. A large part of that are these HD 140 fans, which are twin packed with the controller, costs £63. The fans are available individually at £25. Corsair does know how to charge, there's no denying that. The Commander Pro is £63, and then the lighting node is £50. So depending on how many of each fans and lights you're using, it rapidly adds up. But the result is pretty good. However, you can't actually see exactly what's going on at the minute with this side panel on the case, because the lighting strips here were covered by that side panel. Now you can, if you choose, use as many of these Lighting Node Pro strips all around the periphery. They are both magnetic and self-adhesive, so these are stuck in with magnets, and then if you peel off the backing paper you can use self-adhesive to stick them wherever you like. Although my experience with both this setup and with previous setups is there isn't always as much space inside a case as you might think. For example, this Corsair H100i liquid cooler in the roof of the case, there's no space here whatsoever. I mean, I could obviously put lights along the edges of the fans if I chose, but there's no space up alongside to put the lights. I could put them the other side, but it's very tight. In this instance, this Corsair Carbide Spec 04 case comes with one stock fan at the front. I've replaced the stock fan with a pair of the 140 RGB fans, and they go in fairly well. They obviously take up a lot of space at the front. The fans on the H100i liquid cooler are the stock Corsair fans unilluminated. If I'd had some 120 RGB fans, I could have put them on there as well had I chosen. And the rear fan space is empty on this case. I could have installed a fan there. So had I chosen, I could have put 5. As I recall, when I reviewed the Corsair Crystal 570X, I think I put 6 RGB fans in, and it was light fandango with any number of cables all over the gaff. The spec of this build, so it's the Corsair Carbide Spec 04 case. The motherboard is a Zeus Prime X299A, and then we've got a brand new Core i7 7800X Skylake X processor. Interesting to report is that this motherboard actually is precisely the sort of thing you want to use with a Corsair Commander Pro, because it only has one USB 2 header. So if I'd wanted to hook up the fans and the Lighting Node Pro, and also to hook up the Corsair H100i liquid cooler, there aren't enough headers. Now you can buy internal USB hubs. NZXT does one of those, and I've had to buy one in the past to hook together all their various bits and pieces. But the Commander Pro acts as an internal hub. It has 2 USB ports, which is all you require in order to hook to the H100i, and in this instance I've chosen to hook up the power supply so we can do all the monitoring for that. And then I've daisy-chained the fans and the lights into the unit as well. And then the Commander Pro is connected to the single USB 2 header on board. So in that sense, it works very nicely. Also, Corsair's done the sensible thing. It requires power, as indeed do their other peripherals, and they use SATA power. It is quite annoying to find peripherals in this day and age that require a 4-pin Molex, when clearly SATA is the obvious way forward. It's a better connector, it's easier to use, and we all have SATA. so good on them. One other piece of hardware, we've got Corsair LPX Vengeance DDR4 memory, just for the look of the thing, a stock GTX 980 graphics card, so that is actually illuminated, but that's part of the graphics card. The lighting on the Asus motherboard is controlled by the Aura function that Asus supplies, so I've just set that to kind of whitish blue, that's just static. And similarly, the lighting on the Corsair H100i liquid cooler. You can control that within Link. You can have it do all sorts of things, including warn you about temperatures and such. Like I've just set that to kind of white blue, so that's not doing anything too alarming. The two fans at the front and these two lighting strips here, 1 and 2, there's a connection just there which connects the second strip to the first strip. They are working in unison. They're just going through a kind of rainbow pattern repeating, but you can use any number of patterns. I mean, you can simply set a static light if you'd like, which is very dull. You can use sequential marquees, strobing, and the thing they call visor. There are various others. My guess is you're going to settle on something you like, which is essentially like a rainbow marquee where it's just going bonkers and giving you lots of things, or a thing like this where it's just cycling gently through colours, or pulse, something like that is actually quite pleasant. In a darkened room it can be quite soothing. On the other hand, if you're trying to work, can get a little bit aggravating if you can see it. Clearly you need to build into a case that has a window. The Spec 04 I chose because I've used this for a review before, just actually to show that even a real basic case like this, it does a perfectly decent job of housing some quite high-end hardware. I've taken out the drive bays that normally stand here because I need a space for cabling. There is a lot of cabling. The Commander Pro comes with some double-sided tape and you can literally stick it down to the base of the case. You don't have any facility for mounting in a drive bay, which I find slightly peculiar. I would have thought it'd be obvious to have some screw holes in it so you can slide it into a 2.5-inch bay, or indeed a motherboard mount at the back of a tray. But no, it's a similar story with the little control boxes for example, the RGB fans. As I say, I've removed this because I've daisy-chained this directly into the Commander Pro. It has some double-sided tape on the back. There's no function or no facility for finding a spare hole somewhere and screwing it down. You don't need any access to the Commander Pro once it's in place. Once you've put it in and you've hooked up all the cables, you can forget it because you're controlling it in software, so that's a good thing. One other function that comes with Commander Pro, it has 4 connection points for temperature sensors. Now I must confess that's not my cup of tea. I don't feel any need to monitor temperatures within my PC because once I'm monitoring CPU and GPU temperatures, and you know your motherboard BIOS is monitoring all sorts of other temperatures, that's good enough for me. I, for fun, have actually mounted one of these temperature sensors here. That white piece of tape there is just sticking the thermocouple to the back of the graphics card, really just to check it works, and it seems to work absolutely fine. But I've never felt the need to monitor the back of my graphics card before. I guess if you're doing some extreme overclocking, perhaps. But personally, I'm not that fussed about that. However, that's a function you get with Commander Pro. It's essentially free of charge, so what the heck, if you want it, you've got it. If you don't, forget about it, no problem. And the connections are only 2 pins each, so the 4 2-pin connections take up next to no space. So I don't have a problem with it, I'm just not fussed about it. I would also say that previously Corsair had the Commander Mini, which was actually a very similar physical size to this unit, and that used, that's years old now, and that used a much older version of Link, which was nowhere near as good as the current version. So the functionality in this Commander Pro is better than Commander Mini. The software has improved considerably. In particular, for example, Commander Pro supports both 3 and 4-pin fans in both PWM or voltage modes, and you can stop them if you want, you can turn them on. It does everything that you want or that you care about, and you can choose preset profiles, set custom profiles, have constant fan speeds, and so on and so forth. Nonetheless, if you want that sort of functionality, as I said before, you can easily do that with NZXT's Grid Plus, and you've been able to do it for a while. Without a shadow of a doubt, the Corsair thing is lighting combined with, it's the whole overarching single unit, 1 USB 2 connection, 1 SATA power connection, job done, and bop wob. The downside is, apart from that, it's quite a lot of cabling to hide away, and I've done a so-so job, quite frankly, is it does end up costing a lot. Corsair RGB fans are brutally expensive. Once you add in all the other bits and pieces, you're spending a pretty penny. Nonetheless, the results are impressive. Corsair RGB fans they look good and they work well enough, perfectly happy with the performance. And if you've already got yourself a Corsair liquid cooler and you have no interest in going down the custom loop route, instead you want to expand with your own lighting and such like, this is a perfectly acceptable way of going about it. So Corsair Commander Pro, it works, it hooks together with your RGB fans and your Lighting Node Pro lighting strips, and if you want your temperature sensors, and most importantly, it works as a lovely integrated whole with Corsair Link software. Absolutely superb, what's not to like, apart perhaps from the price. But in terms of form, fit and function, yep, result. If you like this video, thumbs up. If you don't, thumbs down. If you want more from Kit Guru, click to subscribe. I'm Leo Walder for Kit Guru. This is Corsair Commander Pro plus a whole bunch of accessories.